the recording.
Shall I share my screen?
Yes, just to check if we can see everything.
Just give me a short feedback.
Yes, I can see your screen now.
Great.
Okay, then the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Okay, let me start then quickly. So, hello everyone. Welcome to the Deutschland Dynamics Power Week 2020, conducted by 365 Saturdays today. A very good morning, afternoon, and the evening, based on your location from where you're watching or you will be watching later on the YouTube. I would like to say a great thanks to Dr. Ludwig and Raj here to execute the plan for the week-long event successfully. I will try my level best to make the session interactive and alive, so just please bear me for the next 50 to 55 minutes. I hope by the end of your previous 50 minutes, you will be confident enough to build, use, implement Azure Logic Apps for your customers or for your own company in more prominent way to get the best return for your investment of time and money. I would like to briefly introduce myself here, and then I will start with the agenda for the session. My name is Ambesh Singh, currently working with the KPMG Deutschland as a Dynamic 365 architect and a technical manager within Microsoft practice. Prior to that, I worked with the PSN View and the EA Sports, and mostly in my career, I worked with Microsoft in different product groups, global consultings, and deliveries. I'm also the mentor and the ambassador of 365 Saturdays. So let's see the high level of agenda for today. I will do my best to cover as much as from the topic mentioned here and like a topic from outside of the list. So we will be covering a brief about the Azure Logic App ecosystem, how and where to build it, a few of the bonus tips for my learning in Azure Logic App implementation journey, and so on. And then followed by the Q&A. So basically we will cover about the Logic Apps, what is that, why we need this, how it's work, where we should build it, and I would also share a few of the valuable references, uh, and it's really important. You will get a lot of information from there as well. So let's start with what is the Azure Logic App. I would directly move to the Microsoft definition, and as per the Microsoft, Logic Apps is a cloud service that help you to schedule, automate, and orchestrate tasks, business processes, and the workflows when you need to integrate apps, data, systems, and the service across enterprise or the organizations. The next question is why? You don't have to worry about the building, hosting, scaling, managing, maintaining, and the monitoring of your Logic Apps. So Logic Apps handle all of these concerns, or I would say Microsoft handle all of these concerns for you. Plus, you have to pay what you use for based on your consumption model. And the important question come here that how Logic App works. So every Logic App workflow start with a trigger which fires when a specific event happen or when a new available data meets with a specific criteria. So we will see in more details in the upcoming slides. So I will not focus on this topic right now immediately. And on the top of that, the most important thing where to start from. So you can build your Logic App visually with the Logic App Designer, which is available in the Azure portal through your browser, or you can also use the Visual Studio to build it. Honestly, I haven't used Visual Studio to build the Logic App, but you can do just in case if you need it. For me, building apps over the Logic App Designer is much more easier, convenient, cleaner, and for me, it's more maintainable. So we have a two pricing model, pay as use and the fixed cost. So the first one is the consumption pricing model, and it run in the public or the global Azure Logic App service. You pay only for what you use. In your Logic App, each step is an action, and Azure Logic App meters all of your direction that run in the particular Logic App run. So the second one is the fixed pricing model. This is basically like a ISE, like integration service environment, that provide a private, isolated, and a dedicated way for you to create and run the logic apps that can access resources in your Azure virtual network. For the logic apps that run inside the ISE, you need to pay the fixed monthly prices. So it's not based on the run and the consumption, but there's a fixed amount that you have to pay. What you don't need to pay for the consumption base. So the action that get skipped due to unmet condition, or the action that don't run because your logic app is stopped before finishing it because of some conditions or because there was an exception and the remaining action didn't run. So you don't need to pay for that one. But there's a trick, or I would say the pitch, that for action that run inside the loops, Azure Logic App run count each action for that cycle in the loop. Like an example, you have a loop for each loop or some other loops, and in that loop you it executed 1,000 time or 100,000 time. So it doesn't mean that you have to just pay the charges for the single iteration. You need to pay the charges for every action that run inside the loop multiplied by the number of time loop runs. So there is a catch for that one. You should be aware about that one initially before calculating your cost and something. So now basically triggers. So I would like to just show more in the system. So you may be able to correlate it. Let me just quickly share my browser and let me know once it is visible to you. So the first thing first, where you need to go. So you need to generally go to the portal.azure.com. That would be your entry point if you are just going via browser. And after the Azure framework or the browser is loaded for you, then my way to, you can just go and create a resource from here as well, but I always prefer to go to the particular resource group. That is more easy and convenient for me to just track and maintain my all the resources inside the particular resource groups regarding the billings and the security and other stuff. And let me go to one of the resource group here. And the simple way is just type logic apps. Here you go. So there you need to provide few of the basic information like logic app name. So demo Power Week. Then you need to select the location. So if you try to just select the region and the location which is nearest to your to the place where actually you are interacting more with the logic app interfaces. Review and create. Everything is fine. If you need to just put some text, you can just put the text there. Otherwise, just click on the create. It will take around 10 to 15 seconds to create it, hopefully based on your network bandwidth as well. And then it will be available to use. So go to the resources. And then actually I was talking about the polling triggers, webhook and recurrence trigger. So just let me explain it very quickly. So I would just to explain this, like you may saw this is the first page for the logic app. The moment it created, you will land it here. You can use any of the predefined templates which is available there, like the common trigger points, or you can go and choose from the blank template. So example, as I mentioned, you have a recurrence, you have webhook triggers, which is this HTTP request based triggers, we generally call the webhook triggers, and then you have a pooling trigger. So an example, if there is an email received in your Outlook or something, then you can use the pool triggers. Or if there is any record created in the account entity or the contact entity, if there is a new case created or updated. So these kind of things come into the pooling trigger. Let me just quickly go to the blank one and just see what you can do here. So here you just need to type like a trigger or the connector. So I'm just typing second. Let it to load properly. So we have a common data service now as per the Microsoft recommendation, and the earlier dynamic those connectors, but please make it sure that even if you're if try to not use that one if it is just for the demo purpose or some short stuff, it's okay. uh, I just need to make it sure that my screen is still visible.
Yes, we can see.
um, okay, and you can able to see the browser, right?
Yeah, with the mouse on the common
Yeah,
data
yeah,
service. Yeah.
it's good. Okay, so yes, as per the Microsoft recommendation and the recent changes, try to use the common data service. Please do not use the dynamic 365 connectors. It's deprecated right now. And then if you're using the common data service connectors, like an example, when the record is created, so and when the record is deleted or something, these are the polling triggers. So they pulled the all the events for the particular time frame, what you need to give it or what you need to set it, and then it execute at once. The second one is the webhook trigger, like I told you when the HTTP request received. So this kind of trigger you can create it like an example, if you need to integrate with the third-party application where there is a one-way or the two-way communication need to be happen, like a C# application, C# web APIs, or maybe the Java applications, maybe the Python or something, or maybe plain HTML applications based on some of the like a JavaScript framework like Angular or some others. So then in that case, you can use this one. The third one is the recurrence or the recurring. So recurring, it like basically you can use the schedule one. Just let me show this. Okay, it was already there. So the schedule one is basically like the common scenario is like example, an organization need to calculate the salary for the employees on every 25th of the month, or there is a bonus calculation on every um, year end, something like that, or you need to calculate the leaves on every 6 months. So this kind of recurring job you can achieve it via the recurrence trigger. So I hope it is pretty clear now. Let's move to the next. And before I will start, I just want to give a short brief that how the other components look like here. So an example, this is the left pane where you will get a lot of properties related with your particular logic app, like your own logic app you have just created, not the entire logic app in your instance. So you have an overview, you can refresh it, you can edit, you can delete it, disable it. I will come later on this, the difference in both of them. You can update the schemas, you can clone it or you can export it as well. So on the top tools, on the left side, a few of the important like overview, as you can see, the other basic information like which resource group you are, what is the location, which subscription you are, so you can change it. Subscription ID, apart from that, you can see the definitions. So because I haven't added anything, it's a zero trigger, zero actions. Otherwise, you can see the counter there. The status is enable or disable. You can get it very quickly from here. Last 24 hours run history, you can get the summarized here. Okay, 5 successful and 20 failed or something. And if you're using some integration account, you will get it there. Otherwise, no. The next important thing is you can see the versions. So you may have a different version available there. Let me just quickly show which is already available there, where you can see the data actually. So there are the different versions available there. Apart from that, you can go to the workflow setting, which is basically your logic app setting, which is really important. And here you can just put some security aspect that, okay, your logic app need to be called with the specific IP range, or it need to be called from other logic apps. Few of the informations are there. So this you can put it. You can bound the specific like blacklist or whitelist the IP ranges here. And apart from, you can make a few of the adjustment of your retain history or run history, how much like for how duration, how much long or how long you need to retain it. So those information you can put it there. There is something called the high throughput, and high throughput initially was like basically it's basically directly impact on the performance of your logic app. Currently it is under preview, and because it's in the preview, so Microsoft as per the policy will not take any responsibility for this one. It is just for the early testing or something, but please don't rely on any of the preview features. Then but definitely if you are looking if you're thinking that, okay, there's a large traffic will come for the specific time, then you can definitely enable it and you can get the best from that one. So this is something related with that. And yeah, I think the remaining one we can just we will cover it soon. So you have something, some tools and some sections for the monitoring as well. So you can monitors, you can put alerts there, you can change the diagnosis setting if you need to push the alerts or the logs from here to some blobs or something, you can definitely do that one. If you need to raise a ticket, then as per the other Microsoft Azure tools or the products, you will get the option here as well. So you can raise it. So now I would like to just talk about the limitation and configuration information for Azure Logic App, and we should really aware about it before modeling our Logic App scenarios or the solution. So the first thing is action per workflow. So you cannot add more than 500 actions in a workflow. And as I mentioned, let me just quickly go back to the Logic app. I can just show you quickly here. So what does it mean by action? So any of the card you will see on the browser, like this is one of the actions. So in the same way, you can add up to 500 actions, even within the loop, within a scope or outside, whatever places, but maximum you can add 500. You cannot add more than that. The moment you will try to add this, you will get an error immediately on the browser while saving that one. Believe me, there are other scenarios where you need to extend this, where you require this for more than 500 action in a Logic app. The best solution is then you need to go with the child workflows or the child Logic apps. The next important aspect is allow nesting depth for the action is 8. And what does it mean? Like an example, you have a condition here. So this is on the depth 0. And if there is anything inside that is a depth 1. So just let me just quickly show you something. So this is depth 0, uh, depth 1. This is a depth 2, depth 3, something like that. So this depth you can go till 8, and after that you will not get an option to even add an action there. So this is variables you can declare 250 per workflow. If you need it more than that one, as I said, then you need to really plan your architecture of your logic app, that you need to divide it into the sub logic apps or the child logic apps. Switch scope cases limit is 25. So 24 switches plus one default one, it's 25. So example of this. So you have 1, 2, 3, and 1 is default. So in the same way, you can add up to 24 plus 1 default, so the 25. Character per expression. So this is something when you are writing the expression in your Logic app, it's 8192. The name of the action or the trigger shouldn't be more than 80 character, otherwise you won't be able to save it. The length of the description, which is basically the comment, is 256 character. The maximum parameters you can add include the 50, and the maximum output can go to 10. What does it mean by descriptions and the action name something? So just an example, this one. So if you try to rename it, and if you're trying to add maybe more than 80 characters and try to save it, you will get kind of the weird errors. The name is already exist. So technically there is not, you won't be able to save it in short. The next one is the length of the description. So here you have a comment, and this you can go up to 256 characters, not more than that one. So this is something you need to really consider about. The run duration is the 90 days for the multi-tenant or the capacity based, and for the IAC environment is 365. The same is the like the storage retention. I mentioned you where you can see that one like in the settings. So if you can go the workflow settings, the minimum one you can, if you are going for the custom, the maximum is the 90, and the minimum I think it should be 7. So you cannot go, you cannot go less than 7. But in the IAC environment, you can go up to 365. The next one is the minimum recurrence interval, and the maximum recurrence interval is 1 and 500. And what does it mean? I need to again go back to the edit of the Logic app. So even you can go by edit here, or you can just go directly Logic app designer. And if I'm trying to minimize, like you cannot go with a 0 second the interval here. So it should be minimum 1 second. The moment you will try to save it, you will get an exception. And the same time, you cannot go more than 500 days. Hopefully, you should get another exception and the errors when you are trying to save it. Yes. So this is something you need to consider it. You can definitely change those limit by dropping an email to the Microsoft if there is any specific reason for that one or the business requirement. But there is something not out of box available, so you need to connect with them. The concurrency is 25 default, and it's unlimited when the concurrency control is turned off. So I will explain this in a more practical way. But now I would like to move to the next one. So the retry attempt is the 90, and one is for like a maximum delay. You can just put a 1 day, not more than that, and the minimum delay should be 5-1. Definitely you can change this, and this also I will explain in a best practices or the bonus tips in a practical way. So custom connector is one of the important, like in the earlier session, Frederick mentioned about the custom connectors on the port, on the power Power Automate or the flows. The same way you can do it on the Azure Logic Apps, because always remember Azure Azure Logic App we used to call is a kind of the big brother for the flow or the Power Automate, because flow or automate use internally the Logic App engines. And there are a few differences, because people generally ask, okay, why and where we should use the flow, where we should use the Logic App, because they almost do or look like a same and doing the same business. There we can achieve the same results. There are quite differences into that one, and there are a few blocks for that one, and I can just create a short videos for that as well, where I can explain, okay, the differences in both of them. In short, I can just tell you right now that Flow or Power Automate is generally meant for the citizen developer, whereas the Logic App is more for the pro developers. And the second thing is again the complete infrastructure change, because Flow or Power Automate basically is a software as a service, but Logic App is a platform as a service. So the licensing model and everything is different there. So yes, so the number of custom connector, you can go to 1000 per subscription in the multi-tenant as well as the ISC. And the difference in the request per minute. So for if you're going with a custom connector, you can make 500 requests per minute per connections. But at the same time, with the ISC, this could be increased 4 times. So you can go with the 2000 requests per minute per custom connector. Now, quickly some of the bonus tips. But before I'm just showing this, just let me do quick stuff on my environments. So I'm just trying to create an account, and the end motto is that if I create an account in the dynamic CE or the CRM, those account information should reflect into the Business Central instance. So okay, so I will not go with the other fields. I just put on the mandatory fields to just save the time. I saved it, and I will come back here again because it will take a time. So the first thing is disabling and the deleting of Logic apps. So as I mentioned, if you disable the Logic app, there will be the no new runs are like initialized or instantiated, but all the progress and the pending runs will continue until they are finished. So if you uploaded the data like 500 or 500,000 records of Excel, you did import it into the dynamic CRM, and if something is running, while disabling, it will execute all of them, then it will finish it, and then it will disable. But the deleting will immediately impact on that one. It will delete it, and all the pending run will be cancelled. So this is one of the difference. How you can do that, as I mentioned earlier. Second, there's an option to disable and delete it on the top of your tool buttons. So you can disable and delete it. Disable it whenever you think, okay, we don't want to run this when there is no requirement for that one, especially if you have some demo purpose or something, or you are doing some of the like a modification into that one, disable it. Deleting, if you really don't need it, then delete it. Don't keep it with like don't keep it with you if you really don't need it. Download all the schemas, everything, and you can definitely provision back that one, download everything, save it with you somewhere in the GitHubs or somewhere, and then delete it. Uh, Always consider when you are disabling it, and if there is any trigger happen, it will pulled. So there was an instance when I disabled the logic app, and I was in a very initial phase with the logic apps. I disabled the logic apps. I imported couple of thousands or imported couple of thousands records into my dynamic CRM instance. And the moment I enabled it, every like there wasn't those much of entries in my logic apps. So I was weird and I was wondered like, okay, how it's happened, but it's happened. So if you really want to, if you really don't want to run for the specific time, there was some trick. So the trick which I followed, I disabled it, and also changed the connection. Like I just changed the environments, or maybe you can change the from your trigger point, you can change the entities as well. Choose the entity which you think it's not being used generally and often, or just create a custom entity and use that one. So by this way you can disable, and if it will not run in those duration or those imports. Otherwise, for sure it will run the moment you will enable it, and you cannot cancel it at the same time. The next one is the naming convention. So this is something is very important. Please put the name. Please follow the naming convention like other programming language. So you cannot just put ABC initialize variable one, initialize variable two, because even I'm pretty sure like none of your team member will understand after that. And but I'm 100% sure even you, if you started doing these things in the morning and by the evening, if there's a complex logic app, then you won't be able to identify, okay, this variable or this step is for what purpose. And naming convention in the same way, it's really important. And it's for your logic app, for your all the variables, for your all the actions, for your all the loops. Because when you go and add the new action, it give you the reference from the previous actions. So you can use those variables, something from those for loops or something. So it's really important in that case. Uh, the next important aspect, what I could say, the local versus global variable. So in very short, I cannot declare a local variable in the logic app. So whatever you have to declare at the root level. I will just try to show you. I'm trying to add an action variable here, and initialize variable, which is basically declaration of the variable. And the moment I did it, you saw the error message that operation initialize variable can only be used at a top level. Top level, I mean to say the root level. So it's top level doesn't mean on the top, but at the root level. You cannot declare inside of the scopes or any of the uh, like for each switches, nowhere. The next important aspect is the clone functionality, which is really important. So I will show you on the top. If you just go back to the overview, you have a two, like a clone and the export. So clone, basically, if you try to clone did it, do it for the same subscription. So, and the environment. If you really need to export from one environment to another environment, you just need to use the export in that case. So clone, you can just give a new versioning, like there is up and running production version. You need to make some changes into there with some patches or something. So you can just clone it, make all the changes, and then swap it. While cloning, please remember, don't keep it enable, make it disable, and then create it, because the moment clone logic app has been created, it will share all of the connection also. So if you have any trigger point on contact create, it will clone, and then your two logic app run at the same time. So always disable it and then change the connection string accordingly. The next important aspect is the timeout property. And this is basically coming when you are dealing with the HTTP request. So let me just show quickly this stuff also. Okay, and let me show something in the tray. So I have a HTTP GET, and then you can go to settings here. And here you see the timeout. So as I mentioned, like the timeout basically it meets some of the reattempt or the retry if something is not reachable or something. There's a default parameters for that one for the retry policy. And but the timeout is basically like it will wait for some times, and if it exceeded those duration, then it will cancel and fail it from there. So this is really important. You need to consider if you think that okay, you need to customize that one, please customize it. Otherwise, leave it as a default. The next one is how to deal with the asynchronous and the synchronous request. And this is something really important, which I just need to tell you. Firstly, I will show you where I have used the synchronous and the asynchronous. So an example in this case block, I have a 2 for each loop. One is, I can show you right now. Here I just enable the concurrency control. And in the second one, I haven't enabled that one. So this is the one thing which I need to show you. And the second thing in the same settings, not this one. Okay, this is not with the for each, but with the HTTP GET. Here you can see the asynchronous patterns. So if you enable it, there will be the multiple, like it's mostly like any programming language if you have a multi-threading. So it work in the same fashion. Asynchronous will go with the multi-threaded way, but synchronous will go more and less with the threaded way or the linear way. And it works with the concurrency. So I just want to give an example here. Like in one, as I showed, the concurrency was enabled. The another one is default one. So here it is turned off. And now let me try to show you something. So I just pick any of the run from the list. And I went to the same place, switch 200 keys, this one, this one. And I'm trying to show the values. So if it is linear, you can see the value is getting incremented one by one, 1, 2, 3, 4, something. But at the same time, if it is concurrency control is off, then it started with 8. It go the next with, let us check. Okay, it's 7. Basically, it's not a linear way. So it could be 9, it could be 10, it could be anything, but not in a sequential way. I will come back to this. Okay, now it's 10. So that's what I would like to just show you. So this is really important. Like an example, you hit to some of the APIs, HTTP request or something, you are expecting the parameters from there. And then on the base of those parameters, like maybe the currency, maybe some total or something, you need to perform some of the logic. So make it sure if this is something you need to wait and you need to perform immediately, then you need to go in a more sequential fashion. So you can't go, otherwise you will all logic app will run, but you will not get the right results for that. So maybe you are expecting for the hit 1, but at the same time you got a result from the hit 3 or hit 4. Okay, this concurrency control, which I have just explained to you. The next important aspect is the try catch blocks here. There is no defined or declared try catch block, but there's a trick what you can do it. Basically, you can use the scope. So scope is one of the action. So you can just, let me just show it very quickly if I can do it here. So it's one of the action, and based on your response, you can actually decide. Sometimes you can check with the response. If you are hitting some HTTP calls or something, you can just wait for the response. If it is not 200 or 201, then you can throw the exception from there and capture it accordingly. Okay, I will show you here as well. So I'm talking about the scope. You can type it from the top and you can get it here as well. I don't want to save it, but what I need to show it, the try catch. So here, what you can do it, let me just show it here too. If something goes wrong with your try, it will execute the catch. Otherwise, it will always execute the finally. How to deal with that? Let me go to the edit mode and I can show you how to set up this. So you need to add basically 2 or the 3 scope blocks based on your requirement. If you don't need finally, it's okay. And there is something configure run after. So you can check this. The next or the catch block will only execute if your previous step has been failed. If it is not, then it will not execute or skipped. So on the catch, you can just send the emails to the administrator that, okay, this logic app is getting failed. Please have a look into that one. And finally, will always execute. So finally, with the finally block, you can just see it configure and after if the previous block is either successful or even it is skipped in both of the cases. So finally, will always execute in that case. So this is somehow you can just configure this. No harm to save your change, like your all the changes periodically. So it always a good practice if you're working on the logic apps, or you always need to click on the save button. If you are not doing this, maybe you're starting in the morning, you need to go for the lunch, you saved it, and by the time you realize there is some error, and it's really hard to find out the exact error because of the error definition, and you will be killing a lot of your time. So always try to save it. And the another important, like there is kind of no auto save there. So if you somehow you forget it and you come to the next day to your workplace or the workstation, then you try to access it, you will lose all of your changes because there will be a session timeout as per the Azure login policy, and then you can't retrieve all of the work. So it's always recommended to save it. How can you roll back your logic app changes to the specific version, which is somehow another important aspect? You need to go to the property. As I told, you need to go to the version. So apart from the latest version, if you are opening the other versions into there, you have an option to promote it. So suppose I everything was working till yesterday evening. I came to the office, I made some changes, and now my colleague is complaining that, okay, it's not working, and I'm really not able to find out why. For the time being, I can just go and promote the specific version from there, and that version will be applicable as a live version. So this is somehow you can get a benefit with that, which is available out of box here. You can also go in the code view and compare the code, what you just make changes accordingly. The next one is, should you use the preview version? Definitely not. Preview version is just for the preview of the latest features or the functionalities. It's definitely not for the production environments or the production users. Definitely it have more and more features, but don't use the preview version. Different type of data types, and it's really important when you choose the any of the variable data types, you need to be very wise that what kind of data you need to store, because there is no inbuilt conversion. You need to cast the data type from one to another one, and in short, you have around 6 kind of data type available, so you can use anyone from the list as per your convenience. Okay, I'll go to the next. Peak code is one of my favorite feature. So if you are in, let me just go back there, go to the edit one. And if I'm on any of the action inside my logic app in the edit mode, you can just directly go there. Just an example, not the scope, this one, and you can get a peak code for that. And it will show you all of the peak code which is available there. So the benefit for this one, actually, if you really want to just look into what exactly you did, because sometimes it's it's not clear in the boxes or something, and you need to be very specific. Okay, as that's why I just told it's more for the pro developers. So sometimes developer really want to just see the code rather than the drag and drop functionalities, and those times you can get immediate insight of what the drag and drop is doing actually. So you can get the immediate instance for that. Configure run after, as I shown you, for it's used for the try catch block. So you can definitely look for this option. And in my view, there should be no logic app without the try catch. So because you always want to keep a track, if it is failed, then you need to handle and perform few of the action accordingly. Create a child log for the complex requirements or the large requirements. So if you have really complex environment, there is no harm to create the multiple child logic apps. Technically, as per the functionality or the features, there is no difference. We just call as a parent and child, but please keep in mind that as for the functionality or the capabilities, there is no difference into that one. Why should we plan for the logging of your logic app run? Logging is really important. So there is no question that okay, why I should not log it actually, because I need to the complete insight for that one. You can use Azure blobs for that, other storage accounts. You can use the flat files to the log. You just need to configure it. It's not out of box available. What is out of box available is the run history. So you can see the maximum up to 90 days run history into that one. High throughput, as I mentioned, like if you really think that there will be the lot of loads on your logic app endpoints, then go with the high throughput. Otherwise, just keep it as a default. But please don't plan for the production because it's in the previous stage. Logic app runtime history, as I mentioned, like is store up to maximum 90 days, the minimum 7 days. For production, I would definitely would like to store the maximum, but at the same time for the development or UAT environment, I would not go more than 7 days because there were a lot of changes, a lot of runs, a lot of tests, and I could get everything from the last 7 days. So there is no mean to just keep it for 90 days for, because at the end of the day, it is using your storage. So be wise into that one. There is something for the advisor recommendation. You will get it on the left pane of your logic app. And this is something really important. You should always think about that one. You can get it on your um, resource resource group as well. So this is free of cost advice from the Microsoft itself with the AIs and the MLs. And you should be really focusing about those aspects. Now let me just quickly go to my system and show a few of the stuff which I did it. As I mentioned, I just created a Power Platform Saturdays. No, not this one. There was something different. Okay. So I will give a walkthrough for, I just mentioned the Dynamics Germany here. I created it. And let me just try to find out in the Business Central environment if it is really getting created or not. So in the Business Central, let it refresh it. And I should be able to see the entries, at least 2 entries there, because there was some, I was doing some testing, so there should be 2 entries into that one. Okay, there is one, which is okay, but after sometimes there will be a 2 because there is another dependent logic app need to be run accordingly. So this is something. At the same time, I can just drag my Outlook here. I integrated with Outlook. So hello admin, the logic app executed recently for the Audi Germany. And at the same times, I can get it. Let me just find out some of the deleted item. So it is for the Dynamics Germany, which I have recently created it. So this is some of the information you can integrate with the Outlook as well. And more important aspect, as I mentioned, the just let me just pull it back here. The logic app run ID. So an example, this is the logic app run ID. I would like to go back to my logic app then. Let me just go back it there. Okay, I need to search it. And I just found the information here. So this is something if you really want to filter it out, you can pick it up because currently there is a less runs, but there are the logic apps where I can just show you very quickly. Maybe this one. There are the multiple runs, and if something got failed, you really need a background for that one. Okay, what got failed, when got failed, and everything. So try to store the values in the logic app. Let me quickly go to the V1 and how you can store. It's from the workflow ID. So do it on the first place, like after executing your trigger, please store the logic app run ID and pass it in case of like you just need to go with the workflow run name, and this will keep the ID for you, which will be the unique ID. You can just pass the information in case of failure. You can log it in some SharePoint list or some blobs, or maybe you can just drop an email that okay, this run ID has been failed with some exception. Please have a look. And it's easy for the moderator or the administrator. They just paste the run ID on the filter and they can immediately get it. Otherwise, believe me, it's really hard if you have thousands of the run history and to find out the specific logic app from there. So it's really hard. Even you just put the filter, okay, just show me all the failures, but the failures could be more than 100. So it's always advisable to just tag it with that one. So this is something which I want to show you here in this logic app. Just let me just quickly give the short breakthrough of what this logic app was doing, how it pushed the data to the business central. So as I mentioned, like I just initialize the variable, the run history, then I check if the account name is blank or not. So if it is blank, then continue. If it is not blank, then continue. If it is blank, then terminate it with the cancel or the error. And then I just initialize few of the variable. I use the keywords for all the configuration value and the secure values for that. I pick the value from there. The important aspect is please do not cache the passwords. So directly use from the keyword to your action. Don't use it or keep it in a variable. Otherwise, there is no use for that one. The another important aspect is like then I just create a creditor. I just call a creditor API. I just get the debitor from the system, and then I have created that one. So this is for the debitors, and at the same time, I just call another child logic app from where I'm just pushing the information. So I just push this information with the specific URL, and this URL is for the creditor, like a API for the Business Central for the vendors. And I just pass few more information into that one. And then there's a child logic app which has been executed. So I can see the information there as well. And it is basically pushing the information to the Business Central. So just for the for just parent-child relation, I just shown them one. So it is basically posting the data. I make it secure. You have a configuration value in the settings. So because I don't want to just showcase any of the keys or something, and I don't need an like in the response output also, I don't need anything from there. That's why I make it secure. And then you can send a response, okay, it's successfully created, or there is an error. So this all the configuration you can do it. So this is the one thing which actually I would like to show you. Few of the other stuff which I have recently created, like in the morning, I had some time during the breaks and I quickly just created few of other logic apps just to explain the capabilities. It's not only the Business Central to the Dynamics 365 CE. It has a lot of other capabilities. You can just include all of the AI stuff, congregative services stuff, all of the social handlers. There's the enterprise connectors available there. So there are the tons of connectors available and you can utilize all of those things. So what I'm doing there, if any response submitted to the speaker feedback form, then I'm getting and fetching the response from there. I just use three variable to just store the information into that one. And at the same time, I'm doing the three things. So here you will get an option for the parallel action. So you can add a number of the parallel actions there, here. And parallel actions means it all execute simultaneously. And this also depend on your ISO logic app architecture, that if one action is not dependent on other, always go with the parallel one. So I'm doing three things. I'm creating a SharePoint entry. I'm posting a tweet or the Twitter handle, and I'm also sending an email. And whenever I'm sharing this to the SharePoint, like I'm posting this to the SharePoint list, at the same time, I'm just putting a delay there. So I'm just putting delay there and sending the email back to the organizer that, okay, hello again, there's a reminder. This is a reminder email. Ignore if you are already done. Please compile all of the feedback against the speakers and send him her an appreciation of tokens, something like that. And it will go to your inbox. So let's see how it's work. So an example, I just use for Kelly. I, the best rating, I just submitted it here. And let me just quickly show you the logic app related with this. So this was the logic app. Just go and check in the run history. So there was the last one is 311. Let's refresh it. The last one is 550. Open it, and then I can show you how it's work. So if you can see, everything is green, ticked, everything is fine. Let me just quickly show you the other stuff. Like as I said, I should get an email. Let me just check my mailbox. Okay, here's my mailbox. Let me drag it here for you. And I'm sending in the Power Community email. So a new feedback has been submitted for Frog Kelly with a 5-star rating, something like that. Then quickly go to see in the SharePoint list. So here's my SharePoint list. Let me refresh it. There should be an entry for that also. And there is an entry for that. And with the tracking ID, which is basically the run ID for that one, just in case if someone need to see, okay, which logic app run it executed. Let me just quickly go to my Twitter account, and there should be a post for that. So let's see. Okay, and here, refresh it. So hurrah, Frog Kelly got 5-star rating in Dynamics and the Power Platform, and there is an entry for the Twitter. Like I can do this all the things together at one go in a very short time. So it just took me for maybe 15 to 20 minutes to just surface all of this thing. Think about the integration framework because I basically was from the .NET background, and if I need to just create an integration, it took a week to create architectures, then for the maintainability, like all the administrative activities, approvals, bug fixing, a lot of things were there, monitoring. So now I have no pain with all of this drag and drop kind of stuff. So this is something is available there. And then I need to show you one more thing quickly. Let's refresh it. And there was something like it's run on lastly. It is basically I'm checking, like you can just check the sentiments, or you can do on the if you're tweeting something. So let me just see. So if I'm using this hashtag, it run on every 1 minute, and then it send an email. You can use the sentiment, like you can just configure the um, like the cognitive services framework and everything, and then you can use accordingly. So let's see that. And if not, then let me just try to execute it by manually. This is the test. Tweet it. I would wait for 1 minute. And then let me go there. Wait for some time. By the time it is loading, I can show you the information. So, and then I will show you the run history as well. So you will get like that was the information I posted in the email. The moment I will get the latest email, I will show that too. But because it's from the same user, so you will get all the information same apart from the tweet text. So the user details, then you have a tweet text, who tweeted, what was the name of that Twitter account, what language it was, uh, what is the profile image you can get it from there, how many followers for that, and ton of the other properties you can also get it from there. So this is something you can get it, and everything is available right to your hand. So you don't need to bother here and there, and everything should be very visible for you in a short time. Let me just go and see this. It should be run by the time. I will see. And so there was a tweet, and this is the first tweet where I use the hashtag. So I got the information for that, and I should be able to get the second email also in my inbox. And yes, this is the test. So this is somehow this all the capabilities which Logic Apps having, and we should leverage all of them based on our requirement. So back to the slide, and you will get a lot of more information there. So I have compiled a few links here, and it will be very useful for you on your Azure Logic App journey, and you will get a lot of other informations based on that. And apart from that, um, I'm really thankful to all of you to spend your valuable time today and looking for your positive feedbacks and suggestions. So please scan the QR code or use the short URL to access the feedback form. It will not take more than 20 seconds to provide your valuable feedback, and it really means a lot for me to improve myself in my speaking journey. And I will just paste the short URL over the chat window soon, just after the session. You can connect me on my social platform, ask your queries on my Twitter handle, which is Ambesha19. Scan the code and connect me over the LinkedIn. And you can subscribe my YouTube channel for the slides and more demos and Azure Dynamics 365 and the Power Platform technologies. I'm also planning to launch a free of cost course on the Azure Logic app for Power Platform and Azure Business Consultant, Citizens, and the Pro developers soon. So stay tuned and you will get updated information on my social channels. I hope you find the session interesting and useful, at least to find a new dimension on your integration requirements. I would like to just open the floor for queries, like for any of the queries or the question and the discussion now, because we have a couple of minutes available.
Yeah. So, wow, that was a lot of information. So, thank you very much, Ambesh, for sharing all of this information with us.
Mhm.
I have two questions for you.
Yes.
The first one is, you mentioned that there are limitations in Logic Apps. I think 500 connectors, for the duration there's a limit, for the nested actions. And
Mhm.
my question is, did you ever come close to these restrictions?
Honestly, no. I haven't came across this one. So an example, there are 1,000 connectors. You can create it in the ISE or the like a pay per use based on the consumption model. Uh, I haven't created the 1,000 connectors there. The second important aspect is the 500 per minute run. So again, there was not as a situation where I have encountered the situations. There are a few discussion with some of the community members regarding the loops where you have a large SharePoint list or the SQL data tables where you have thousands and the thousands of record and you need to do some manipulation into that one. So there was something come for the timeouts, and the best answer is for that. Then you need to use the chunking for that one. So there's the chunks available in your loops, and you should be like quite often think about to use that one. So there was some discussion, but there's always a solution from the Microsoft. And on the top of that, Microsoft is really helpful, and they're really welcoming. If you have kind of some issues, there are email addresses I can just share on the chat window after the session. You can just drop an email to them. Either they will suggest you, and if is they really think it should be the part of the product, they will definitely provide or those capabilities in the next upcoming releases.
Okay. Okay. We just got a question.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it is about HTTP webhook versus HTTP request. Which is the best option to consider, and pros and cons? Not sure if this can be answered in just a minute, but I think you share still your contact details, so maybe you can get into contact with each other after this session.
Yes, I'm connected with
Yeah.
Venkat on this, so I can answer this.
Yeah.
But from the request perspective, I think I use the HTTP, so I cannot say HTTP webhooks are bad or something. But definitely, this is on which like which scenarios. That is also an important aspect. We can't say black. There's nothing black and white, so it's always based on the scenario. So I will discuss with him, and maybe then I can able to just give you a short feedback to him accordingly.
Okay, very good. Okay, so that's perfect timing. So, Ambesh, thank you very much for your presentation, for all the preparation. That's usually a lot of work. And also for supporting us here with the organization of this event. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot to you, Dr. Ludwig, because I know there is a lot of things while organizing we need to face across, and you're really doing a great job for you.
Good. So then let me do my administrative job and first stop the recording before we move on with the next session.